Hello everyone, I hope this is in Aries. It's nearly over, the international break, thank the Lord, as Newcastle travel down to Brighton, which we'll be doing their fires this weekend. Back to basics, but it's been an international break, and I want to recap because there's some notable performances, in particular from Nick Woltemade, Anthony Gordon, and of course, you might have seen this, Bruno Guimaraes' 2 world-class assists in 2 different games. We're not going to cover Odyssey's Vlachodimos because he's not with the club, he's out on loan. We're not going to cover him. But just before we get into that, drop us a like. That would be wonderful. Thank you very much for that. But I wanted to just touch upon, just before we get into that, is that Newcastle allegedly, according to TalkSport, are after £6 million in compensation from FIFA because of the injury to Johan Wissa on the last international duty, where he picked up an injury and it's ruled him out. Obviously, he just signed on deadline day, went out to play for the DR Congo, scored a goal, got injured, and he hasn't been seen since. And it's probably realistically another 2.5, 3 weeks until we see him in a black and white shirt. To Newcastle allegedly are going to get compensation from FIFA. We'll wait to remain to be seen on that. But let's get into it. Shall we start with some negative? Sweden. Not good, is it? It is not good at all. No call up for Emil Kraft. Of course, he wasn't selected. However, last Friday, Anthony Elanga was on the bench and watched as Sweden lost 2-0 against Switzerland. Then, just a few days later, they lost again. This time against Kosovo, with Alexander Isak captaining the side. Both of those games at home. Elanga was brought on at half-time in the second game. However, afterwards, because of Sweden are in real danger of not qualifying. Former Magpie, John Dahl Thomason, who's been sticking up for Isak, has been sacked by Sweden. Of course, Graham Potter's thrown his name into the hat, of course. But it looks like Sweden aren't going to beat the World Cup. They're struggling. But you shouldn't be playing a striker who isn't match fit. Simple as that. But Sweden are massively underperforming and not doing very well. So it's unusual for Sweden not to be in a World Cup. And it's unusual not to face England. And it's not unusual, I sound like Tom Jones, it's not unusual to draw 1-1 with Sweden. But there you go. Sweden are absolutely in tatters at the minute. And considering their strike force with Gyökeres and Kulusevski and Isak and Elanga, yeah, they're not going to be there. It doesn't look like they need to win. They need to win. They need to have teams do them a favour, basically. But let's move on to more positive news with Germany. A lot of talk, of course, in Germany about Nick Woltemade. People from Werder Bremen, people from Bayern Munich, flapping their gums, wanting to talk about him, that his fee's too high, and Newcastle are idiots. We've seen all of that. But too many people, in my opinion, having their say on him. But after a little bit of flu, he missed the training last week on Wednesday, back in training on the Thursday, and then played just over an hour for Germany. Got no assists or no goals, but Germany won. But I wanted to touch upon is in Belfast, they faced Northern Ireland. He was the match winner. He was indeed, as he grabbed the only goal from a corner from the right-hand side. It kind of hits his shoulder and goes in the corner. It's his first goal. Doesn't matter how you claim it. Whether it goes off your backside, your shoulder, your head, your knee, whatever. You got it. And that means that Germany have now won 3 out of 4 games so far. And it's great for him, because he's getting all this talk in Germany and he's the leading man at the moment for the Germans, and they've got a talented squad and he's off the mark. He's up and running for Germany. He got his first international goal, so that's real positive. I have a quiz question for you all. Can you, at home, name me the other Newcastle player in the history books who scored also his first goal for Germany at the same ground at Windsor Park? He was a current Newcastle player when he did it. Can you name him in the comments down below? If you do that, you know your football knowledge. Well done if you do. But fantastic for Nick Woltemade, off and running, and his form at the start of the season for Newcastle has been class. Fully expect him to be in the starting lineup against Brighton on Saturday. So good news about Nick Woltemade. Let's move on to Brazil. Oh my word, Bruno Guimaraes. A couple of these assists are just insane, absolute class. So after all the carry on of Joelinton and Bruno having their flight cancelled from Amsterdam because of a window smash or something, and they had to turn around and get alternative travel, like to get 2 flights out to the Far East, which, ironically, I'm sporting me South Korea top that I got out there. And they faced South Korea. Eventually, they got there. Joelinton didn't play. He sat on the bench and watched as Bruno, as he played 79 minutes in their thumping 5-0 win over South Korea. But I do have to bring up Bruno's assist. It is absolutely sensational. It is just breathtaking. He picks the ball up from outside the box and he sees Estêvão when he's running. He's like, I'm going to play you in here. And he gets it all the way through like a needle through a thread. He gets it all the way through and Estêvão lifts it and scores. It is absolutely unreal. What an assist. Incredible from Bruno Guimaraes. Love to see that. Absolutely love it. I love seeing our players go away into national duty and perform well. Because I was that worried that, you know, they might not play or they might get an injury. But Bruno's obviously, with Carlo Ancelotti, he's always playing, he's always starting. And then over to Japan, 4 days later, Bruno got another assist. Didn't play as much this time. He played 57 minutes. Ironically, he was replaced by Joelinton, who obviously got on the bench. But he had another fantastic assist. It's another great assist. This time it's a little bit further back and he's played the right winger in who goes in and scores. It's unbelievable. Another world-class assist from Bruno Guimaraes. It's like, where you're finding these through balls are absolutely class. So Brazilians obviously known for the flair, but the passing accuracy and the assist of Bruno is absolutely class. Speaking of Joelinton, so when Joelinton was brought on, ironically he replaced Bruno. Brazil were winning 2-1 at the time, but they actually lost 3-2. Against Japan. Joelinton did have a chance literally in the dying seconds of the game, but these 2 games were friendlies. But again, more positive news to come out of this because Bruno was absolutely class with 2 world-class assists. Class. Let's move on to Italia. Italy. On Saturday, Sandro Tonali played the full 90 as the Italians beat Estonia 3-1 away from home. And then on Tuesday, they defeated Israel at home 3-0. Tonali playing the full 90 in the first game, almost the full 90 in the second. He was brought off in stoppage time. So more or less 2 full games for Sandro Tonali. Italy have won 5 out of 6 in qualifying, but they're not even top. It's Norway who are blistering that group. They've won all 6 games. So the return game between those 2 nations can determine whether Italy will automatically qualify or not. So that game's going to be crucial. But with Tonali, 2 full games, no injury scares from what it looks like, so that's positive. He got no assists or no goals, but he got through those 2 games unscathed, which is great news for us this weekend, as I say. Moving on to England, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't watch England at all. I haven't watched any international football, but last Friday, it was Wales's big... I'm going to have it torment the Welsh, yeah, so apologies if I've got any Welsh Toon fans, but another Battle of Britain, where it was a ton of English players on display for both teams. But England obviously won 3-0 in a friendly at Wembley. Anthony Gordon playing the full 90 on the left wing, but interestingly moved centrally a little bit later in the game, with Dan Burn watching on as an unused sub. Interestingly, Dan Burn does have a broken hand, but he was still involved with England. But yeah, 3-0. Former Toon keeper Carl Darlow played the full 90 for the Welsh in that game. Inverted commas Welsh. But moving on to Tuesday, and England back in qualifiers. If they won, they would qualify potentially for the World Cup, which they did. They absolutely battered Latvia 5-0 away from home. Special mention, Anthony Gordon playing on the left-hand side, cuts in, opens the scoring for England. A lovely, lovely goal. Bottom corner, into the bottom right on the 25th minute, and that's his 2nd international goal for the Three Lions. Brilliant. And he was replaced in the 71st minute. Dan Burn did come off the bench in this one, though. He played roughly about 20 minutes of England's win. That was his 4th cap, but England have qualified for the World Cup over in North America. Dan Burn was saying later on that they were playing American songs, and Anthony Gordon didn't quite get it. Well, obviously, they go to America for the World Cup. Former Magpie Elliot Anderson was also involved over the international break as well. England have won 6 out of 6 in qualifying. Let's move on to some of the youth players, because some of them have been on international duty as well. And if you haven't liked the video so far, please do. Helps go a long way. We'll start with Ireland under 18s. Now, their first game was suspended for 24 hours due to bad weather, but they lost against France under-17s in Pinatar. And Rory Finnegan captained the side and played the full 90 minutes. He's a talented midfielder that we've got in the books. And then later for Ireland under-17s in a 1-1 draw against Switzerland under-17s, which concluded their preparations for next month's under-17s World Cup final tournament, which is going to be held in Qatar. And moving on to England under-19s, where our right back Leo Shaha was involved in both games, as in Marbella, England battered Belgium 4-1. He came on in the 67th minute, and then 3 days later they gave Wales a hiding, hammering them 7-0 in a friendly. Shaha started that game playing 67 minutes, and they were 4-0 up when the defender was taken off. He's highly thought of. He has been involved with first team training, and he's made a couple of subs appearances from the bench. Hasn't got off the bench yet, competitively that is. But yeah, big things expected of him. And then lastly on to Ireland under 21s. Sadly, Alex Murphy didn't play at all last Friday as they drew 2-2 with Slovakia under 21s. Just sat on the bench all game, so he went to Dublin. Cork, beg your pardon, it was Cork that they played in. Went to Cork and didn't feature, so there we go. But that is your international roundup of all of our lads who have been from youth to full internationals. The key standouts again: Anthony Gordon scoring, Tonali playing the full 90, Bruno's couple of world-class assists, and Nick Woltemade. So it's been positive, and hopefully we get that compensation money because that helps with PSR and what have you. And yeah, going into this weekend, we're obviously still going to have Vissa out missing from those internationals, but yeah, we should have Jacob Ramsey, and as far as I can say, there's been no injuries on international duty, which is good news. Good news indeed. But yeah, we shall love yous and leave yous, and we'll build up on Friday for all of the weekend with things like news, press conferences, the drive down in the camper van. Make sure you tune in for that later this week. And of course, I'll be doing Brighton, giving you all the stuff doing there. And then on Sunday, we'll be back at the Lasses, driving back up to see how the Lasses get on against Man City. That's a tough game, isn't it? But yeah, we'll see you very soon on Newcastle Fans TV.